Welcome back again, everyone. Two friends occasionally not disagreeing. This is Cody, and I'm here with another mini episode for you all today. Before I get to that, I just want to mention I had just gone out this past Sunday to see Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I really recommend you go see on the big screen because it is visually one of the more impressive Marvel movies in the MCU. Lots of really cool character work done there, and the settings are pretty awesome as well. Just a really vibrant and effectful looking screen as you're watching. We watched on IMAX, and it was worth seeing. I thought in the theater it was pretty cool. So we'll probably get to a full review on that movie later, but for now I'll just say it gets a thumbs up for me on first impression. But we'll see how I feel about that as time goes on, because I also thought Thor: Love and Thunder was pretty decent when I watched it in the movie theater, and then more I reflected upon it, it was not so great. But anyway, that's just a little tidbit as to what I just saw this past week. I know that's brand new in the theater, so if you're on the fence about that, I recommend go see it. It's pretty fun. I bought myself a Ant-Man helmet popcorn holder that lights up with the LED red eyes, and it's pretty cool while I was there. So I got a little memento from that as well. But on to today's episode. I hesitate whether this is to be classified as a classic or crap, or whether this is just a game review, because what I want to talk about is a game I mentioned on many podcasts I have been playing in the background called Dying Light. This is a zombie open world style game, but it came out originally in 2015, so that's 8 years ago. And I played through the re-released Platinum Edition, which includes all of the DLC content and mods and extra add-on story missions, etc., on the Nintendo Switch, which PS I thought it actually ran pretty well on. There was, at times maybe 50 or more enemies, maybe 100 enemies in some spots on the screen at the same time. No lag, no slowdown. I thought that was pretty good, because I know some games can start to chug a little bit if it's on the Nintendo Switch, but that's my primary platform, so that's what I like to play on. Okay, so Dying Light, as mentioned here, came out a while back, and this, just quick premise of this, the story of the game, I thought was kind of cool. So there is a quarantined city, which is modded after, I read online, some of the cities' styles of some Brazilian cities, but the way it was presented with some of the music and almost some of the background noises that would play once in a while, it seemed to be more Middle Eastern city to me. And I'm looking on the Wikipedia page here as well, and they kind of agree that it seems to be somewhere in the Middle East as well. Anyway, it's a fictional city called Haran, which the game takes steps to repeatedly tell you is not based on any particular city. People are not based on any particular people, etc. So this is pretty cool because it's a quarantine city where, the world has kind of noticed that there's this zombie outbreak due to, I guess, a virus, more or less. And, what would we do if that actually happened in real life? They quarantined the city. They blew up the bridges to the city. They have stopped all the ships in the city, tunnels leading out of the city, etc. So they kind of have just left the city itself to fend for itself. And that in itself has created some kind of interesting sub-communities within that city. So you play a undercover agent, actually, by the name of Kyle Crane, who goes into this world of Haran in the slums section. And basically you're this undercover agent looking for a former operative and looking for some research that we want to extract from this city in an effort to find a cure for this disease, or so this is presented at first. And it's kind of fun because you just, pass yourself off for quite a while as just another random survivor that's in this city fighting off the zombies. When you meet other people, as the story goes on, eventually you kind of open up to more people that you trust and have more of a relationship with. But that's kind of the premise of this game, and it's really fascinating because the city has been more or less, devolved into two groups, where there is a group at a skyscraper called the Tower, and that's kind of where you first hook up with people and start to do missions for them. And then there is another basic tower on the opposite side of town, led by a guy named Rise, and he's kind of the bad guy in the city, more or less, so it seems. So it's kind of fun. You go around this big open world zombie place, And this is based on combat. Obviously, we have hundreds of millions of zombies in this city. And the way the combat works in this game is pretty fun. You can choose whatever kind of weapon you can find laying around. Could be a plank with some nails in it. Could be a hatchet that you find. Could be a monkey wrench that you have. It's pretty late in the game, actually, that you start to pick up guns and have that as an option. But there's always a chance that you could get them. A lot of the missions and situations in the game are really fun because you can approach them different ways. You could run up to a particular spot just on the street. You could climb on rooftops till you get to the area and drop down. You could bring zombies to chase you and then have them attack other humans that you see. That's how I got past one really hard mission early, was actually lured zombies into a little military installation and basically let the soldiers there and the zombies duke it out while I kind of ran around in the background and was able to fulfill my mission, whatever that was on that particular one. So as I mentioned, also this game is based on the parkour system, which is, basically, how do we want to say this? Manipulating your body off your environment in ways that you can like run and grab things and climb and dash off walls and things of that nature. So we have the ability to climb different things. If there is a ledge you can grab onto, or you can jump from roof to roof, or you can hang from things, etc., which allows you to kind of, traverse the landscape without really having to interact with the hordes of zombies that are down below. Two really good systems in this game, I felt. Number one is the sound system, or hearing maybe is a better word. If you make noise in this game, or if you're fighting someone and they make noise in this game, it will attract, dozens of zombies to come at you. And if you happen to interact with your environment in such a way, like you have a car alarm that goes off, or you try to bust into a pharmacy and an alarm goes off, that'll attract, a dozen zombies. And most of the zombies in this game are fairly weak. I should say slow. I shouldn't say weak, because they take 4 or 5 hits to go down. If you can target their heads, maybe slightly less. But it's a game where you definitely always feel like you're in danger, because I probably died 400 times playing this game, and I doubt that's an exaggeration, because even if you would get yourself cornered in this game, the small little zombies would just slowly rip you to pieces. And it is a horror game for sure, but that part is not so graphic, so violent, I guess, but it can be. And then there were other types of zombies who are a little bit faster, and those supposedly in the storyline seemed like the ones who are more recently turned from being a human. They retain a little bit of their human instincts, and they're able to run and occasionally even talk or scream out as you're hitting them, which is really disorienting to be playing a city full of zombies and some are like shouting back at you. But that's kind of the idea, is that then eventually they would turn into the slow zombies. So sound is definitely a big thing. You can run and jump off of a rooftop onto another rooftop. And if it's like an awning or a tarp, that's pretty quiet. But occasionally you'll jump onto a building with a wooden roof, and that will kind of smash through, and that'll create a loud noise, which will attract zombies in as you're going. So sound is one system I really liked in this game. The second system is that we have a day-night cycle here. And the day cycle is much longer, I should point out. The game has an internal clock which continuously runs, and I want to say from like 9 p.m. to like 6 a.m. So maybe 9 hours of the day is nighttime. And at nighttime is when the real dangerous creatures come out. There are hunters that come out, and they are basically super zombies, super fast, super strong. They can slash you to death. If you don't have a really good weapon in a one-on-one match, you'll probably lose against one of these things. And at nighttime, I should mention too, you have a flashlight beam. For almost every part of this game, you're going to want your flashlight on. And when you genuinely can't see around you too much other than your flashlight beam, and you see some of these night creatures pop up at you at different spots, it is a little startling. Like the nighttime is actually fairly creepy in this game. Daytime's okay, but you can see what's coming at you. But nighttime's pretty creepy as it goes. So day night and also the hearing thing are two really cool systems. You got the parkour going on, and then you have weapons. The weapons can also be modified by different blueprints you find, different upgrades you find. So if you maybe have a baseball bat, you can add like electric damage to it or flame damage to it or whatever. The weapons do break in this game, so that's always a plus minus for some people when they play. I'm not a huge fan of crafting, but this one's super easy because if I have like a bat that breaks, I can just use a couple metal parts or whatever and fix it back up. And maybe I can do that 3 times before the bat's no longer good. Its integrity goes and I have to get rid of it. And even then, I can still cannibalize that bat for a metal piece that I could use for something later on. So really simple crafting system in this, which I do enjoy. And I liked limited inventory space and was, early it was like, can I find enough weapons? And later it was like, oh man, I have 15 good weapons, but only have 12 good spots for that. I don't know what I should keep, what I should get rid of. So some good decisions here as you kind of get more specialized weapons as the game goes on. So as mentioned, this is a game that has a pretty fun plot as you get to know some of these survivors in the city, and they're, presented as one of the factions is basically good and one of the factions is basically bad. Although there's a little gray area on both of the teams with people you meet along the way. One of the things I do enjoy in this game is the fetch missions or the collect missions or whatever you want to call them. A lot of these open world games have things you need to go collect or find, etc. This one, there's really, you can find things in the city, but most of it's just supplies. It's really just the missions, but they all kind of made sense to me. Like, there would be a guy who needed his reading glasses or something at one of the locations, which seems like a silly task, but to that guy is something he wants. And so you'd have to go find his house on the map and then search through his house, which is pretty small, a couple floors. You have to find a way in, find the glasses, and then bring it back to him. And that would be kind of one mission there. But the missions will get more complex. There's different things you have to go do, like if you need to go, find crayons for the kids as a mission, for example, and you have to go to this creepy ass building where you go inside. And this is one thing the game also does really well is that when you have a mission that's not outside in the city, but rather one where you have to go inside these larger buildings, like a school I can think of, there were a couple of hotels, some apartment buildings, etc. And you get into these bigger buildings, and that kind of becomes like a sub-stage within the game. There's some pretty cool missions in there, like just the idea of an abandoned city, and then going into an apartment and like going through the apartments and seeing what you find in those apartments. Like some of them have people who killed themselves so they wouldn't turn into zombies. Some of them have zombies left where the people were at. Some of them have goods that you can steal or weapons or valuables that you can sell off to other people later on. So there's a pretty cool environment when you get to go walk through these buildings like that, because a lot of times I think these open world games focus really quite a bit on what's happening on the big map. But going into the small maps really allows a lot of freedom with storytelling and direction of where you can have the characters go. I'm thinking in particular of an apartment building mission I did, which I will not spoil how that one ends, but needless to say, it was not at all how I thought it was going to, from doing a little detective work for a kid. Pretty cool. So anyway, so some pretty cool missions in this. The main story as it goes through is going to take you to a second area. So the first half of the game, you're in a place called the Slums. And the second half, you're going to get to a place called Old Town, which is much nicer. It's where more of the rich people would have lived, I guess, compared to the Slums, which was really run down and broken buildings and like very poor neighborhoods. The Old Town area is kind of the opposite. It has big bell towers and libraries and things of that nature. So it's pretty cool to have both of them be options of where you're eventually going to go. The puzzles in this game, because there is basically one type of puzzle, is a lock-picking mechanic wherein you're going to use an item called a lockpick, which you can craft or find to open various chests of different difficulties and sometimes doors as well. And they range from easy to medium to hard to very hard. And essentially, you're going to use one of your joysticks to kind of activate that and the other joystick to kind of decide how much pressure you put into the lockpick because you're looking for a spot where there's no rumble sensation eventually. And meanwhile, you have people that could be coming at you to attack you as you're doing this, so you got to really make sure the area around you is clear before you try to do this. But it's a pretty fun little mechanic. Sometimes you get lucky and you'll just hit it on the first try, and other times you'll break 3, 4, 5 lock picks just trying to find that one perfect spot on a very hard crate or the back of a van or a trunk of a car or a door in an apartment that you randomly found or whatever the case is to see what's inside. So that's pretty cool. I enjoyed that quite a bit. As far as the zombies, obviously they're going to get, more diverse and stronger as the game goes on. You start off with just kind of those first two types, the slow one and the fast, crazy ones that slash. And then I mentioned the nighttime, you also have the ones called hunters, but there's other ones that'll come out later on, giant guys with sledgehammers and spitters and like a super hunter, more or less, with kind of spikes coming off their body. And so in addition to that, you also have humans that are sometimes enemies with guns or combat knives or machetes, and sometimes you have humans who are also other survivors that you can help. You could be running from point A to point B on the map and essentially bump into some scenario that's happening along the way with some survivors, and you could choose to help them or ignore them. And if you help them, sometimes they give you something good, sometimes they give you some money, etc. Sometimes you make it a weapon or whatever the case is. There are airdrops that take place all through the game, I will say, as well. Like every few minutes, an airdrop comes down. Those are going to, in the game story, basically be little vials of not an antidote, but basically something you can take to prolong from turning into a zombie if you've been bitten, which non-spoiler, big surprise here, your character is kind of bitten fairly early in this game and has to find these upgraded antidotes to try to keep him alive. You don't really have to find it, like it just is part of the story, but you don't actually have to go out and find them yourself because that would be annoying. But there's a part of the story, where it's like there's only so many antidotes and we have so many people here and there to save. So what do we do with the antidote type things, which is kind of interesting. Let's see, what else do we have here? One of the other things that's cool about this game is upgrading. So they keep track of 3 different skills, I guess you could say. One's like how well you parkour and jump around the city, and one's like how long you survive, and one's like how much damage you give enemies, I believe. And each of those are independently, registering upgrades as you play through the game as well. So your one might finally hit a new level, and then there's this great tech tree in this, or skill tree, if you will, where you can choose what you want to upgrade, and that'll give you something new, or you can charge into zombies or trip them or give them a suplex, or you can jump higher, or your stamina will go up, or your health will go up, or there's new weapons you can craft, or all sorts of different things. So how I played the game and what I picked would definitely be different than maybe how you play the game and what you picked as well. All right, so what else do we have here? This game has a few submissions that are, I understand, probably part of the DLCs that came. There's various locations you can go, like a stadium, there's a prison, there's several quarantine zones where you can do different types of missions. Some of them you have to collect supplies or cures, antidotes, that is. Some of them you have to kill every enemy. Some of them you have to eliminate a nest, they call it, which is like a spot where a lot of the bigger zombies hide during the daytime because they only come out at nighttime. All sorts of different missions, some of which you can replay, some of which are one-time missions. The amount of crafting you can do in this game from the DLC is bonkers. This probably has, the Platinum Edition probably has I don't even know, 10, 12 DLCs that were added to this game through the years. So, I had a LED bow that I used quite a bit, and some kind of shotgun that was named after something else, but all sorts of crazy weapons. And then with those, there were little submissions that came as well. So all kinds of cool things that you can do in the game there. As far as negatives about this game, what I did not enjoy, there were a few missions that were essentially just climbing, and the game has a mechanic where if you jump, it's not really clear if you're supposed to press a button to grab onto the ledge. It seems like you're not supposed to. You should just automatically grab that ledge, but it wasn't consistent, which drove me nuts. So if it was a mission where I had to climb a huge tower on the bridge or just up the side of a building, and that mechanic didn't always hit the way it was supposed to, that was extremely frustrating because you generally would fall a very long way down and die. Thank God you would start usually halfway up the building or whatever. You don't have to start from the bottom, but that was a little infuriating. The jumping, I will say, was a little inconsistent. Other things about this game I didn't enjoy. Let me think. I guess I'm really mixed on this. There's no like warping, or for lack of a better word, just jumping from one part of the map to the other part of the map. You could go from the one city to the other part of the city with a warp, but you couldn't go like, if I needed to go from the bottom of the map to the top of the map in one city, you can't do that in this game. You're forced to traverse the city every time you go from a mission, from one spot to the other spot. I was really mixed on that because I'm used to kind of warping around the map a little bit at save points or safe zones or whatever, which there are safe houses I'll talk about in a second. But you can't do that in this game. And it did make the missions longer, but also by going from one end of the city to the other end of the city, it kind of forced you to find some neighborhoods you maybe didn't see before, maybe find some items you wouldn't have found other words. And honestly, it kind of led to just like the danger of playing the game. Like I felt like I had to get from up here to over there, and that's not a given. Like I might die 3 times doing that, and have to restart someplace and then have at it again. So I don't know if that's a negative or a positive, but it was definitely, kind of unique. There are safe houses around the map, maybe 10 or 12 on each of the 2 city maps that you can unlock various ways. Usually you just have to kill everybody that's there, zombies, and then lock the door or put a gate shut and then find the power to turn on. And that was a way to stop anybody else from coming in. And then you'd have a safe zone, which you could A, start over at if you died. You could B, use the sleeping bag to switch from day to night or night to day if you chose. And then C, you also had your stash there. So if you wanted to swap out weapons you currently had on with some that you had stored in your bag, which I barely really ever did that because you could hold an absurd amount of weapons. Like I said, like 12 or 13, 15. I don't even know what it was. But anyway, so that was kind of cool. So there are safe houses, but you can't go from point A to point B. So there's that. The moment of the game, I guess, that stands out to me was actually a little spoiler here, but later in the game, you are connected to another character. And I won't say the full story because I want other people to experience this. But there is a stage, I guess we'll call it, where it cuts away from the city that you've been playing in and puts you in almost like this dreamscape type world where there are just chunks of buildings that you interact with and like clouds more or less and scaffolding that you're jumping around on, while talking to another character all through this. And it was a surprisingly emotional stage, if I'm being honest. It really kind of hit me deeper than I thought it was going to, because maybe another criticism is you don't really get a lot of characterization from the characters in this game. The ones you talk to, you interact with them, you hear their story, but for the most part, you don't get a lot of deep characterization from them. And the main character himself, Kyle Crane, you get a little more from him, of course, but he's kind of a stoic, I'm going to survive through all this. Should I help these people type guy as well? Not unlike, the protagonist of many things that's kind of unsure of what he should do and then kind of comes around to what he considers to be right, and it goes from there. So that's maybe a criticism too, that you don't feel a lot about the characters in this game, but just the gameplay was so fun. Just even like, jumping off a couple buildings into a neighborhood to see what's there and looking around some of the buildings, and a zombie gets too close and grabs a hold of you and you got to shake him off, and then you'd start to whack him with whatever weapon you have, and that's going to bring a lot of other zombies because you're making noise now. And then suddenly it's 4-on-1. And so you jump into a video store and you're kind of backed against the back room of the wall and you're trying to hold on. And it's very challenging, but it's fun because I'm not good at stealth, which is ironic because I want to play one of the Assassin's Creed games coming up here pretty soon. So I haven't played one in that series in a while, but I just have this tendency to want to smack things when I see them in the game, and that was a bad idea because very often it would bring a lot of bad guys on me as well. But it was still fun because of the upgraded skill tree. Like the more people I would hit, the better, it would be. So, all right, other things in this game. There is a sub game that you can play within the game. There's a little video arcade machine that you find in both halves of the town called Hell Raid. And if you go into that, it takes you into this like demonic, almost Diablo like, but first person point of view. And you're like crawling through a dungeon and fighting skeletons and zombies with these decrepit swords and potions. And it was really fun. Unfortunately, my save file for whatever reason got stuck on like the third section and I couldn't go back and finish it. And this is just a game I had rented from the library actually, but you presumably could have quite a bit of fun playing through that. It looked fun. The part I played was fun, but it would have been cool to see. And then the weapons from that are available for you in the real world if you use the currency from Hell Raid to buy with from the game essentially. So that looks pretty cool. Now I will say there are some modes or missions on this that I did not try in my time. For example, you can play this multiplayer, which I think would just be a blast. I don't know if that is online or local or how that would work, but I do think that would just be a blast to just have like two people trying to take down hordes of zombies in this. I don't know how it works mission wise. Like, doesn't really make sense. I don't know who you are, just some random guy who's with Kyle Crane, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe you're not doing missions. I'm not sure. And then there's also a what's it called? I forget the title. It's like the Be the Hunter mode or something like that, where it's at night and you get to play as one of the big hunter zombies, essentially, and you get to hunt down, I guess, Kyle or whoever else is a human. And I did not play that mode either, just because I don't know, it didn't really appeal to me to like try to find that and run around as the zombie. Didn't sound that great to me, but I guess that's there too if you're interested in that. A lot of the DLC missions, I did most of them. There were a few I didn't do. There's some quarantine missions where there are some sealed up quarantine zones you can open up, and then you can go in and fight in those areas. And the first one I did was like a stealth mission, and I was terrible at it. Like I got caught in like 5 seconds every time I tried it. It was pretty early on when I was playing the game, so I didn't try any more of the quarantine missions until much later, and then quickly realized that in fact, not all of them are the same. So that was the only one that was like that. So I went in and played all the other quarantine missions, and they were all really a lot of fun, actually. Just hordes and hordes of zombies. Like I said, some of those hotel missions and other apartment and even a restaurant mission. There was a lot of really fun side missions in this. Trying to think what else. Just the zombies are so persistent in this game. It was so much fun. You never felt safe. There was times you'd be dashing for the safe house and just hoping to stay alive. I don't know, as far as did it feel unique? I don't know if it felt unique so much as just really, really, really solid. I'm looking at IGN.com. They gave this game an 8.5, and their comment here says high-speed parkour and gruesome zombie massacres make Dying Light a blast, even if the story's just okay. I thought the story was fun. It was really just, what you'd expect from like what would happen with the bad guy in the world behind a zombie game, rundown city and just crazy stuff going on here. So I guess all said and done, I had a lot of fun with this. So they gave it an 8.5. I would give this probably an 8.0. It was a lot of fun. If you have access to this game, if you like zombie games, if you like open world games, even if you like parkour or just, running around killing things over and over and over and never being safe, your blood will get boiling a little bit with this. Your adrenaline will get pumped up, but I had a lot of fun with this. This is Dying Light for a lot of platforms now, actually. I played it on the Switch, but according to its page here on Wikipedia, this is available in some format on the PlayStation 4, Windows, Linux, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, Mac OS, and PlayStation 5. This was the Platinum Edition that I played, but the other one's probably good too. This was just a newer one that looked a little bit shinier and had a little bit more stuff added in. So, Dying Light, really enjoyed it. If that's the type of game you would like, I can't recommend it enough. Well, at least an 8 out of 10 enough. But had a lot of fun in Haran. Sad to see that go. There is a sequel to this game. I'm kind of curious if that's connected plot-wise or not. I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to play that, but maybe someday. But anyway, I spent many good weeks with this. Give it a shot. You can't go wrong. This is Dying Light. All right, everybody, that's going to do it here for me today on this little mini episode. I hope you enjoyed a review of a game that I've been playing through recently. It's kind of been a goal of mine to finish up some other games as well. I just finished Hades that I've been playing off and on for months and months and months and months as well. And now I'm also picking up Fire Emblem Three Hopes. It's kind of my goal here to keep playing through video games that I hadn't finished, if for no other reason to clear off my slate before Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, whatever that's called, Hyrule Tears or whatever it's called. I forget the name of it. Tears of the Kingdom, something like that. Or if I can squeeze in No Man's Sky or Assassin's Creed, I'm going to try to do that as well. So that's it for me today, folks. We'll see you next time on Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. Take care, everyone.